In the sacred land of Karnataka, where the rivers whispered ancient secrets and the winds carried the echoes of divine hymns, lived Basavanna, the enlightened mystic. His wisdom was not just in words but in the way he lived, free from illusion, untouched by time. Among his disciples was Dharmesha, a young seeker with an ever-questioning mind. One day, troubled by the concept of time and stillness, Dharmesha approached his guru with a question that had been haunting him. Dharmesha bowed before Basavanna and asked, "Guruji, we measure time with clocks, with the sun and moon, with moments that pass. But I have heard great saints say that in deep meditation, time disappears. If my mind becomes completely still, does time still exist?" Basavanna smiled, looking up at the vast blue sky above them. "Ah, my child, you wish to understand time not through words, but through experience. Come, let me show you." He gestured for Dharmesha to follow him. Basavanna led Dharmesha to a large tree, where the sun cast long shadows on the ground. "Look at this shadow, my child. As the sun moves, the shadow moves. This is how people measure time. But tell me, does the tree itself move?" Dharmesha observed carefully. "No, Guruji. The tree stands still, only the shadow moves." Basavanna nodded. "So, it is with the mind. When the mind is restless, thoughts move like shadows, creating the illusion of time passing. But when the mind becomes still, like the tree, what happens to time?" Dharmesha's eyes widened. "It stops?" Basavanna smiled. "It is not that time stops, my child. It is that time only exists when there is movement in the mind. When the mind is completely still, there is nothing to measure, nothing to count. In that state, time is meaningless." Still, Dharmesha was puzzled. "But Guruji, how can time disappear? The world still moves, the sun still rises and sets." Basavanna picked up a lit candle from the temple. "Look at this flame, my child. What happens when the wind blows?" Dharmesha replied, "The flame flickers and dances." Basavanna then cupped his hands around the candle, shielding it from the wind. "And now?" Dharmesha's voice softened. "The flame becomes still, Guruji." Basavanna's voice was calm yet firm. "The wind is like thoughts, and the flame is your awareness. When the wind of thoughts stops blowing, the flame of your being becomes steady. And in that stillness, time dissolves, because time itself is just movement." Dharmesha gasped. "So, time is nothing but the motion of the mind." Basavanna smiled. "Yes, my child. Stillness is not the absence of time, it is the realization that time was only an illusion to begin with." Still, Dharmesha had one last doubt. "But Guruji, even in deep meditation, the world outside continues. The rivers flow, the birds sing, people come and go. If time disappears in stillness, then how does the world continue to exist?" Basavanna pointed to the sky above them. "Tell me, child, do you see the clouds?" Dharmesha nodded. "Yes, Guruji." Basavanna continued, "And do these clouds move?" Dharmesha replied, "Yes, Guruji, they float across the sky." Basavanna's eyes gleamed with wisdom. "Now tell me, does the sky itself move?" Dharmesha paused, then whispered, "No, Guruji. The sky remains still." Basavanna placed his hand on Dharmesha's head. "So, it is with the mind. When the mind is restless, time moves like clouds across the sky. But when the mind is completely still, it becomes like the vast sky, unchanging, eternal. Time may still exist for the world, but for the one who is truly still, time is nothing more than passing clouds." A deep silence filled the space between them. Dharmesha whispered, "Then when I am still, I am beyond time?" Basavanna's voice was soft yet filled with the weight of truth. "Yes, my child. The one who is truly still is neither in the past, nor in the future. He is in the eternal now, the only moment that ever truly exists." For the first time, Dharmesha stopped thinking of time as something outside of him. He realized that time only existed as long as his mind measured it. That night, as Dharmesha meditated, he no longer worried about the past or future. He simply became still. And in that stillness, Shiva was there. Now, the moral of the story: does time exist in stillness? Time is created by the movement of thoughts. When the mind is still, there is nothing to measure, so time dissolves. Stillness does not mean time stops, it means time was never real to begin with. A restless mind sees time as flowing, but the still mind sees eternity. To go beyond time, go beyond thought. To go beyond thought, become silent. Time does not bind the one who is truly still. In stillness, eternity is revealed. Om Namah Shivaya.